I don't know what you caught from what I was saying at the end there.
I think I heard everything you said, but then I guess you didn't hear any. I talked for a while.
Oh.
So I don't know what's going on. This is out of control. Okay. I think that, you know what I think this is? I think we're being,
they're trying to suppress.
They are. They're trying to suppress.
Yeah. Today on the podcast, where we've pivoted away from our scheduled program to talk about Bugonia, the new Yorgos Lanthimos film. It's interesting, and we both saw it recently, and certainly it's something worth discussing. It's a very thought-provoking film, and you might go to the film experts for your opinions on, thought-provoking, discursive, provocative Yorgos Lanthimos films. But some like it unauthorized, and I am Jay Brooks Young.
And I'm Zach Domes.
And I think we'll use spoilers throughout this whole thing because it's worth thinking about how the film ends, because it's a bit of a mystery film in some sense, and it's worth thinking about what the ending says about the whole film, says about this metaphor that sets up and all that. And a summary is it's about this Jesse Plemons character recruiting his cousin, played by newcomer Aidan Delbus, to kidnap and interrogate and test the Emma Stone character to determine if she is an alien who is exploiting the humanity and the earth for her own ends. Yeah, they kidnap her and shave her head so that she cannot use her hair to contact the rest of her alien species, and many discussions ensue. I'm curious about your journey watching this film. Like, how were you feeling throughout, and then how did you feel when you got to the ending, Zach?
The thing is, I think it was fun and it was thought-provoking and interesting. I did feel like throughout there were times where I was surprised by Yorgos' decisions in like the script and in like certain shifts in the plot. Like at times it just felt a little too perfect, and I'm more familiar with his kind of very wonky, very surprising, and oftentimes grotesque, changes in the film. Here, like with Poor Things, he's a little bit dialed back with all that type of stuff. And not only that, I just felt like there were just certain shifts in the plot that just felt too clean and too perfect. So sometimes that takes me out of it a little bit. As an example of a film that's like super perfect and fun, but for me, I don't necessarily love, is that murder mystery that everyone raved about back, and they're now making a trilogy or like a third one.
Yeah, Knives Out.
Yeah, like it's really fun, but everything's just super, super clean. And for me, it just feels like, it's hard to explain. So it just feels too, it's unreal. So I guess like here Yorgos is like giving us a very kind of realistic version of like a conspiracy theorist guy. He's the costume design is amazing with Jesse Plemons and his cousin. They really look like they're homeless, almost like they're very dirty, and they're very not taking care of themselves. Dirtier than a lot of like characters are made out to be in Hollywood, even today. A lot of like nice, neat details that seem pretty realistic, and then like a plot shift, like when his cop friend shows up just when he gets in a fight with Emma Stone. To me, that just feels like it's in line with like what a TV show would do, and I just didn't expect it from Lanthimos. And then I discovered after the fact that he wrote this with the guy who wrote The Menu, which I thought that's another good example of way too clean of a film. As fun as it is, it's just it's like a script film in a way. It's like a screenplay film.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, there's something very pulpy about it. It's definitely a premise forward, and it's setting up these situations so we can have these philosophical arguments between the characters, and then we can kind of ratchet up the suspense at certain moments and create these set pieces and these moments of what's going to happen, how are they going to get out of this next thing. And yeah, there is something kind of schematic about the script. So yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, I feel like it didn't take away from it for me just because I was so involved with that central metaphor of the rich people as aliens and all the kind of different avenues that they found to explore from that starting point. Like, I love the things that this film makes you think about. In that way, it was one of those films that like I was not so invested in the characters the entire time, but I was really thinking about the themes and what they're trying to say and all the things you can extrapolate from it. And I think it's really, really successful on those terms. Certainly more than something like The Menu. For me, I think the things that you think about from this film, to think about like the sum total of human existence, and are we like morally good or bad, or would it be better for the planet if we were still here or if we were gone? Like, these are really interesting things to think about, especially at this moment in history, I guess, and then like how precarious our situation feels. So I like really appreciated it on those levels.
Yeah, same. And no, that's I wouldn't be able to find too much else wrong with it aside from what I said, because so much of the rest of it is great. Has that Lanthimos fingerprint on it, of course, and it's beautiful and it's so well shot,
and
so
the performances are terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to give Jesse Plemons an Oscar like immediately.
I know.
He's so amazing.
Yeah.
And Emma Stone, like once again, after playing like a Karen in The Curse, is showing just like how good, how perfect she is playing that type of role, and just them butting heads is really exciting.
Which is then to say, like, super funny, very, very funny at times.
Yeah.
Or did you have? I should say, did you have other things in mind to say about it, like in terms of like more about your experience or anything?
I guess just that, like, it's one of those films where, like, going in, once you find out what the premise is, it's a film where you can kind of predict the ending. Like, when you set up aliens, it feels like you have to pay off aliens. You have to actually show us aliens at the end. That proves to be right, and I think you see a lot of people saying that they predicted the ending. But for me, like, it played out really well. Like, they found the moments to make you doubt that ending. And then when the ending finally comes, I was really satisfied with it, because I felt like they had really explored this thought experiment of, like, if we were to be judged, what would some other civilization, decide to do with us? Even having an idea that it would go down the path that it goes down, like, it managed to split the middle and be really interesting by the point that you actually get that confirmed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when there's a point where Jesse is doing more tests, and it's the like electrocution test, and he's doing this test to see if she passes it. By I'm not sure I'm not sure the exact details of how he knows whether or not she'll pass it, besides not dying, let's say. But that point was the first point of the film where I began to go, that was a lot of voltage.
Yeah, right.
I don't think any human would come out of that still able to think and not just become a potato. I don't know the actual voltage that a human can endure and not like completely fry their brain. But that seemed high.
Yes. But it's like ambiguous enough for you to question it and say like, is he not actually turning it up as much as he thinks he is? Because you think he might be inept at what he's doing.
Right.
So you're still doubting if she is an alien or not. And it's amazing to now look back on that moment and realize that's when he finds out she's of royal blood or royal DNA, because he says he cranks it higher than he ever had before, and she still survives.
Interesting.
Like right. he had captured 2 aliens in the past, we learn, but they were not royals, so they would not have survived to that point, apparently. There's a lot of fun little details and kind of breadcrumbs along the way.
Right, and that's actually where the ambiguity can remain, because he distracts you with going from testing whether she's an alien to finding out she's royal. So the ambiguity of it sticks because you're distracted by this new conspiracy. You could say, like you're at one level of the conspiracy, and then you're going like, wait a minute, like, can a human really survive that? Then he goes, you're not just an alien, you're a royal alien. So now you're like, okay, what is really going on here? You're strung along. That's well done. That's well done.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're wondering, like, has he just kind of experienced this traumatic thing? He's inflicted all this pain. Is he making up a new conspiracy, like, to deal with that, you know? I started thinking of John Carpenter's The Thing, which was a film that kind of flopped at the time and was not, like, critically acclaimed, and later got reappraised and got raised to a very high esteem, because I just think, like, yeah, like, you will be taken out of this film. It is so absurd, and it's got those kind of weird constructions to add suspense, but I think it's a very intelligent film and a very, like, important film in terms of, like, what it's about.
It's true. I guess I think that to some degree I set my bar a little too high with Lanthimos, because that what you're saying now is how I would describe pretty much everything I've seen by him. So I think, like, in some sense, for me at least, I think he set a bar for me personally to expect not just what you're describing, but also doing that by being even more strange. I think with this, he was as thoughtful, he was as creative, you could say. He was pulling some new strings that we haven't really seen before, but he wasn't as weird as he could be, and he was a little cleaner than he usually is. So I would say, like, yeah, he set a bar for me, and I think I just have to accept that with art and with artists, they, like, take on different projects and different challenges, and they do things. Not everything they do is going to be the exact same. Falling into that, age-old habit of coming to like an artist for some piece of work that they've done, like with Ari Aster, everyone goes to see if he's doing Hereditary again or something. It's like people will do new things.
No, that's totally fair. Yeah, I get something pretty different from this film than I got from Poor Things, which I thought was absolutely terrific. And I connected with that emotionally. I felt like it created this experience of growing up, of like coming to terms with the world and all its like beauty and cruelty, and like having those experiences you have as a young person, seeing those things for the first time and having them like overwhelm you and having to like fight through those things and become a person like that all worked for me on an emotional level. So it's a different kind of film. I get something very different from it, but I like this film. I like thinking about these things.
Did you by chance see The Favorite?
I did after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I liked it a bit. But I think Poor Things was the first time for me that I like connected with one of his films to a really intense degree, because I never saw Dogtooth, and I tried watching The Lobster like as like a teenager or something and did not respond to it and ended up like turning it off halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
But Poor Things was at another level for me.
Yeah, Poor Things so far does seem to be his the one that he kind of goes all in on, and does so for kind of seems like a wider audience, and yet achieves all the types of things he's done in all the rest of his films. And then Kinds of Kindness was that's where he was working on Kinds of Kindness, I think, while Poor Things was in its like CGI stage, and that is a full-on resort back to his weirdness to a degree that I watched it with 3 other friends, and 2 of them had to cut it out midway because it was just too intense for them. It's very violent in a very strange and intense way, because it's not just violent, it's like psychologically intense. The thing is, and then I think about that film, I think like, how the hell did I make it through that? It was really intense. And then I think back on that and I go, wow, like what was he doing there and how did he pull that off? Because it was unsettling. It was one of the most unsettling films I've seen in a long time. And again, so then I'm expecting parts of any film he will do to have moments of, feelings of unsettling. I felt like with The Favorite, even like it was very unsettling at times. Watching Queen or whoever she was like eat as much as she's eating, for example. It's very unsettling, the way it's just shown, right? So, yeah, I don't know. And it's not like everything he does has to be unsettling, of course. I just think, the shock value was...
I think it's important. I don't know, like, in some way. I think he's trying to make us grapple with the things that we don't talk about, the things that we, like, suppress. And his films always end up being about, like, how gross and animal we are, what the like things that we're capable of that we try to pretend that we're not, I think.
Yeah, that is his fingerprint. Yeah, that would be his style, I guess you could call it. That is it for sure. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, but when I went to see this in the East Village, 35 millimeter, which was beautiful. I can't believe that that's coming back, by the way, film and all, and seeing new movies and film. But I went and saw it, and it was like the whole audience was 25 to 35 years old, and you could just tell they were all ready for some weird shit. He's created a kind of a fan base in a way that's ready for anything strange, just like Ari Aster or Safdie Brothers.
Yeah. And well, I was thinking about Kubrick because I decided to rewatch A Clockwork Orange the day that I would later go and see Bugonia. I kind of had it on the mind because I think that's a film, and Kubrick in general, but especially A Clockwork Orange, Yorgos really, really pulls from that film, takes a lot of inspiration in the visuals, in the content. And that, like, 2001 and A Clockwork Orange, I think, were films where Kubrick was tapping into the counterculture and the youth movement, taking shots at society at large and at humanity even. Like, are we, like, what's going on here? Like, why are things so fucked up? And like, I think, young people really respond to that. They have those questions as well. So that's like, for this moment when there's so much bad going on and young people are asking, like, why is this happening? Like, this is an artist who wants to tap into that, I guess, and ask those questions as well.
Yeah. It can be such an easy miss, if you're going to try to take a snapshot in some way of what's going on, man, that is a risk in some sense, because that's hard to get. It can so easily miss the mark. You know what I mean? And I do think a lot of people felt that that's what happened with Eddington. I think a lot of people did feel like it missed the mark in some respect. Some people thought it was great. Some people thought it missed the mark. I think with this one, he's not aiming directly at culture, right? Like, if you don't aim directly at culture, you have a better chance of being successful, because a lot more of it's metaphor. It's not like, this isn't really our world totally. You know what I mean? It's sort of parallel to our world. Whereas like Eddington was our world in every way up until the last third, of course. But he takes real names and real associations and all that stuff in Eddington. With here, it's a fictionalized business, corporation, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I might push back on that I think Eddington stretches into satire a little bit more, and we can point to real things that happen in this world. I mean, Trump's our president, so we don't have to look far to find real things that feel like they would be in a satire. But I think Astor is heightening things quite a bit, whereas I feel like in this film, there's something very realistic about this depiction of a CEO to me. I mean, I've seen some people say that, like, after she's kidnapped, she can't possibly, like, empathize and do anything but talk in CEO speak and things that just, like, are totally unrelatable to Plemons and his cousin. But I didn't feel like it was very heightened or unrealistic in terms of the CEO character or like this conspiracy theorist or the world around them. Like, there's just like poor rural, like middle America. It looked very familiar to me.
Yeah, no, it was very familiar, and it was direct for sure. But and in doing that, right, he takes a risk. There's a little bit less risk taken in like a fantasy of some kind, or like a different world altogether. Because you can like kind of just make it up. But when you take aim right at culture and what's going on, you have to get all the things right. You have to get all of the things that are brought up accurate. Like, for example, when he talks about how she asks him, like, what movement are you part of? It's like right after he finds out she's royal. She's like, okay, so what movement are you part of? And he's like, what do you mean, what movement? And he's like, I've tried them all. I've tried alt-right and alt-left, and none of them worked for me, so I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah, I went shopping hungry and I bought the whole store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it isn't obvious what will work, I guess. Because there's plenty of movies. There's so many things that are done that are like reflections of, like a lot of shows, for example, a lot of TV shows that try to reflect the youth or today's world and totally miss the mark. So
yeah, and I think it's just important to like take that contemporary story or premise and then ask bigger questions, because then it doesn't just get stuck in this moment. This is like those Kubrick films. This is asking, like, what is our human nature and what does it say if we agree upon some kind of morality, but the like sum of human activity seems to be that we're destroying the planet. Bugonia. We never got an explanation for the title, did we?
Not that I'm aware of. No. Well, we did. Actually, we did sort of. I would say the ending is, I'm guessing, a place or a civilization of some kind. Probably the final sequences has to be named Bugonia, if I was to think of where that name came from. That's my guess. I don't know for sure. Because of like their costumes and what they're wearing and stuff like that. They kind of look like bugs,
Yeah, at one point, the Emma Stone character talks about how much she admires bees. They're like pliancy, they're single-minded, goal-oriented existence.
Yeah.
But Bugonia makes me think of ants also. Ants, bees, anything that in terms of life that is so below us in consciousness and ability to be conscious, be like perceptive at a certain mental level, that there's a gulf, like we can't relate, and they certainly can't relate to us. And by the end, I start thinking about how these aliens are viewing us, and we are like the Bugonia. We're the colony of measly insects that are just incapable of understanding the universe at the level that they understand it.
Right. Although I will say, just as a side note, that if you look up on Wikipedia the mirror test that we give creatures like elephants, I think, and dolphins and crows can pass the mirror test, which is when they're put in front of a mirror and they have a spot on them, and they know to clean it off themselves, because they can recognize that what's in the mirror is actually them, so that they wouldn't think to clean the thing in the mirror, they would think to clean themselves. And they can verify this by putting like a dot on the forehead that's matching color of their skin. So if it's like a gray dot on a dolphin, they don't wipe that dot because they can't see it. But they would wipe off of a white dot or something. So anyways, they have done this test to certain species of ants, and the ants, a great number of them pass the test. They look in the mirror and they clean themselves. So they might be smarter than we think. But I agree with you. It's a matter of miscommunication. It's a matter of not knowing what type of intelligence they have. And, I think really good alien movies, they sometimes dabble with that a little bit, where they don't treat humanity necessarily as, unintelligent, but just different. There's just a different intelligence. I'm thinking of that one movie that Denis Villeneuve did. What was that one?
Arrival. Yeah, I thought of that too, walking out of Bugonia.
It's just a difference. And, we're still struggling with this with animals, like you say. For a long time, science thought that animals had no intelligence, really, and we're just instinctual. But, we're finding out that ravens, for example, are wildly intelligent. It's just a matter of figuring out the tests they would excel at. It's not necessarily like give them an IQ test, obviously. So,
yes, it's a difference in intelligence, and I think naturally that comes with a difference in morality too, which is really, really big for this film. What this film is about.
Right.
It's like, as humans, can we get away from a morality that centers ourselves and our biological need to reproduce? Would some kind of arbiter, in the sky above us look down and say, you've got it all wrong? Like, you think that the moral right is for a conscious human to like have ultimate freedom of expression and stuff like that. But like that this is a whole big universe full of matter and things that are beyond your perception, and you're stuck in your narrow band of that, thinking that, you know, you're the most important thing. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're not.
I mean, I agree with you. You know, that would be the problem, is I think we view ourselves as more intelligent than we really are, and definitely we'd view ourselves a lot of times as more moral than we really are, because there's a kind of confidence that we have built in, you know. I mean, in some sense, you go back in way back in time to early humanity, and it seems like they've discovered that we almost died out at one point. So we have baked into our genes this kind of very instinctual survival mechanisms, you know. What were the chances that we survived? And yet we did. So now we're looking around and we'd think, wow, we really lucked out on that game. And not only that, now we're thriving. So of course we're going to think we're like better than we really are and all that stuff. But, you know, from the inside out, of course, there's always going to be meaning. And, you know, Bugonia is an example where it simultaneously is a work of art and expresses deep meaning in a lot of different ways. I mean, this is the work of an amazing artist of our time. So there's deep meaning in one sense, and then he's also showing that there's a certain perspective which loses meaning if held on to too tightly. So it's kind of asking us, you know, what meaning should we stick to here? You know, there's a certain, you know, capitalistic meaning, the meaning in money and the meaning in that kind of thing. Yeah, at the end of that, it seems pretty futile and inevitably meaningless. But a symphony of some kind, or a movie like this, deep meaning there, an infinite amount, really.
Mm.
Because you could imagine an alien civilization comes down and sees us, you know, wreaking havoc on our own planet and with each other, and have been for a long time. And then they also hear Beethoven. And it's like, well, if they're intelligent by any means, they would recognize that despite our flaws, we've also concocted some interesting things that do seem to have some meaning.
Yeah, but at what point does it become like like admiring the triumph of the will or something? Like, wow, they made some great arts, but look at how they destroyed the whole planet. You know?
Well, I mean, I would be. There's a sense here that you can look out to the universe, and yet we've yet to see any example of you know, at least inorganic matter not doing this to itself as well. Every star, every beautiful star, you could say, eventually burns itself out. It's sort of baked into nature to have a sort of cyclical existence, coming into existence and then dying out. And of course, premature death would be horrible. If the earth and life and everything could continue for a long time, that'd be great. But I don't know. I like to think that when we're talking about meaning, that's the trick with meaning, is that you're sort of tasting it, you're glimpsing it, but it is always beyond any one person and probably any group of people. I just can't imagine in my mind, and I know, of course, it's because I'm, you know, a small individual on this small planet, but I simply can't imagine that an alien life form that is more intelligent would have more access to meaning, let's say. And here's your thought. Here's the thought experiment on that. You could say, why not just kill off all of the bees, for example? They're just little insects roaming around, and you know, we could find a way to pollinate plants if we needed to in some other sense. There's other pollinators too. They're not the only ones. I think we have a sense of like creatures are meaningful, other things are meaningful in the universe. Like who's to say what's meaningful? I can't imagine a smarter creature would know what's more meaningful. I simply think that meaning is a thing that is beyond us, and beyond anything, really.
Yeah, I like that way of looking at it, because when I start thinking about this alien civilization that we glimpse, like, in a way, they're still like us, it would seem. They're still bent on self-perpetuating, biologically reproducing, like us. We were modeled in their image. So whatever way that they understand meaning or construct their, like, theories of morality, it's probably a lot like ours at the very least, and probably does not go beyond ours. Like, I think there's a way to read what happens in this film and what happens with the Emma Stone character and say, like, they're not so far beyond us, like the Emma Stone character says at one point, like, even existing among you all, I become more human. I'm more, like, debased. And it's like, what she's saying there is all of what we are is within her. We're not so totally different. And it kind of becomes very difficult, almost impossible to imagine what a life form would be, what sentience in this universe would be that is unlike us. So certainly, yeah, I like that thought that the meaning that we find is going to be the same as any other intelligent life in the universe would find.
That's right. Yeah, that's well put. And I guess hearing you say that too, I would add that, well, it sounded very sort of Judeo-Christian sounding, actually. Like she's sort of like a Christ-like figure.
Yeah.
In some sense that she's, has access to being human, even though she is from a different kind of theoretically higher civilization. In some sense, what that would then look like is you could fault any species for destroying their own home, you could say, but you could fault any, let's just assume that there's a higher life form that's more moral and smarter and stuff. Well, they didn't come from this planet in the way that we did. Like you can fault us, but you can only fault us as so far as the background that we've had. Change out that intelligent life form's history and supplant it here, where they would have to, like, come out of Neanderthal type situation and all that stuff. Like, I highly doubt that they would have. No one would have chosen anything different. So, again, but that's to say that, like, that's all to say that, like, damn us for sure for having the ability to suddenly self-reflect. And here we are with this gifted brain, apparently just too damn selfish to actually course correct. But again, like, blame us so far as our history allows, like we almost died out at some point. So of course we're selfish and scared and all those types of things. Yeah.
But yeah, when does it make sense to pass a final judgment? That's the question. Don't we still have a chance to redeem ourselves in a like Judeo-Christian sense?
I've always thought humans are, I think this was said somewhere before, and paraphrasing some philosophers or something, but we can be so unique and interesting and thoughtful as an individual. Individuals are so creative and cool, but as groups, man, we really fall down the wrong paths as groups too often, which is so strange. You'd think that in numbers, the intelligence would grow, or morality and things like that. But in groups, man, we can be very dumb. Crowds can be so dumb.
We look to the people that have, like, hyper isolated themselves, and a lot of times that leads to a very warped view of the world and how things work. You think of like the Unabomber or school shooters or all sorts of people who become very just like disillusioned with the world, with life, with humanity. But then that flip side, it's like our mechanisms for like social fitting in socially, the ways that we are aware of how we fit into the group or not, like that stuff is so strong and influences our decisions so strongly that, like, yeah, it doesn't become about ideas, it becomes about this nebulous popularity contest, I guess.
Yeah, and if only you were like Plemons' character and you could go your own path, man, just tap out entirely. And what does he do? He castrates himself. Just become totally focused on the real project here. Don't worry about those groups.
Yeah, I do appreciate that in this film. Like, if this was real, if aliens were really pulling the strings, it would only be a crazy conspiracy theorist who would see the signs and actually follow those to their conclusion and never feel like stupid, never doubt themselves in that conviction. Like, they would have to be smart enough, but also just like dumb enough in a sense, like to imagine that can be the reality and go to the lengths that the Plemons character goes to. And that's like something we need on a whole in terms of social groups, is we need people who are different to bring ideas that sort of strengthen the group and add diversity to our thoughts. And that's how we kind of build and change our social systems to meet, the challenges as they change. Like, we really need a difference of thought in our society. So that's always a balancing act of, you don't want too many people out there who feel totally disenfranchised and act against people's wishes or just get lost in bad, like, conspiracy theory rabbit holes. But you don't want a totally uniform society either. That's the balancing act of humanity.
It's like if you just follow the straight and narrow path, so to speak, in science, let's say, and you just accept today's science, you're going to be wrong in 50, 100 years, because the science will discover new modes and models of thinking. But if you're like way off and on the farthest edge, you'll probably be wrong too, because it's unlikely verifiable, and it's really, really just unlikely that that's what would be correct. But somewhere in the middle, there's that fringe. So it's like so many great ideas in science, they say, come from like people who were on the edge, but not like not like past it. But they weren't like from the center of science either. Those are where a lot of the great breakthroughs happen. A lot of the artistic movements happen on the edge of art. It like back when when people were doing lifelike paintings, they didn't go straight from that to Jackson Pollock abstract paintings. They was a progression, because the art always followed the edge of what was new, not what was like utterly unimaginable to the people of that day. Jesse Plemons' character is somebody who everybody would think is wrong because he's past that edge. And, Lanthimos does a good job to express several times how his character is motivated not by truth, but by emotion. Everything that we do is motivated by emotion, of course, but in this case, his mom is sick and was sick at by the hand of this CEO character. So it's extremely motivated by pain and hurt and all those things. So it would be easy for someone to go, hey, isn't this, like some of the other characters do. Isn't this what this is actually about? You're not actually finding truth here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the truth that he's after is why are certain people able to act so with such cruelty towards other people? And that's the rich that will use the poor masses as pawns in their scheme to gain ever more profit. And like, I mean, I think this is like at its base level a terrific film because this metaphor works perfectly of the rich people today being so unlike us poor people that they're like aliens. And this is how they want it as well. They continue to strive to be less and less like us. And that montage at the beginning of Plemons' life versus Emma Stone's life, how different they are. And she's got these training regimens, the exercise, the pills, all these luxuries, these ways of maximizing her physical and mental body, and just being unlike, just regular people. That's such a contrast with Plemons, what he can afford and what he has to deal with in terms of stress and sort of unfavorable environment that he's in, and all of this stuff. Like, that just works perfectly as a metaphor. That's like an alien. That's like there's this gulf now of desires, of priorities, of empathy that feels almost unbridgeable. And now I've forgotten what you'd said before, why I went off on that. But
well, it is true. I mean, and that's a well said examination of the metaphor there for the fact that she is a CEO. She's extremely wealthy, and Plemons, first of all, wants to find out about why that's the case, and apparently finds out that she's extraterrestrial. But being an extraterrestrial is a metaphor for an ultra rich CEO. That's very interesting. It's a very interesting way of playing out a movie. I didn't think of that before. It's like, oh, this whole time she was a CEO, but no, actually she's an alien. But oh, that's a metaphor for ultra wealthy CEOs. I hate to keep going into history and all that stuff, but I'm thinking about how back in the day, the wealthier people, they may have had more, but a lot of the way they lived and everything was of the same thing. So like if you were a king, you would have just had more of the same type of food. There wasn't that much. There wasn't like that many different types of food you could have. Today, in today's world, the wealthy are living just entirely different lives than most people.
Yeah.
They really are aliens in some sense.
Advancements in science and technology
They've become alien.
Have made that possible, yeah.
And they will in some sense, like you said, they abide by different moral principles and trick us and fool us into agreeing to their moral rules, which are different from ours, allowing them to do things that we would never be able to do.
Yeah, I forget what line it is. There's some point in what the Emma Stone character says where I thought of like Peter Thiel, these sort of futurist, like life extension, super ultra wealthy people. They've decided that they know best for the rest of us, and they have this idea of how they're going to both extend their lives but also extend humanity. They're going to take the ultra long view and think about space exploration and kind of shift their morality to caring less about the human condition in the present and discounting that to a very great degree. to the point that to us listening to them, it simply feels like you've gone way too far. Even if we try to take the long view with you, you're endangering humanity almost more so by being so callous towards people and just wanting to let them toil and grow so discontented and then let them like live in such poor conditions. Yeah.
Oh, I loved how all of that is operating, and then at the same time, I'm going to bring it back to how Jesse's character has a lot going on within emotionally, because I do think that that's so much of why a person like this would be motivated to be who they are, and it can a lot of times be forgotten. But one part that I thought was well done too was when his cop friend, his old cop babysitter, was sitting in the living room, and he was like, sorry for what I did back in the day. Now again, the part of the script and why it's too clean a little bit is like, I feel like part of the reason they put that in, part of the reason, is that you would feel some sort of redemption or like some sort of moral okayness with when he kills him by the beehives, because he's not a good guy, of course. But I felt like that was interesting putting that in there, because again, it just shows you the sort of history that the Jesse Plemons character had. He had a lot of trauma. He had a lot of pain. And that tends to be something that kind of pushes one in the direction of which he ends up in as a character. Kind of trying to, it's not just his mom. It's like it's this babysitter guy too. And it's like, you can only imagine like what else he had to put up with. Was he bullied in school and all these types of things? And I think we're doing a really good job examining, why certain people like Jesse end up the way they are, and doing it in a way that's like we're not forgiving them of their sins, like he killed people to find out if they were aliens, but just sort of like, getting to know who they are more as people, to figure out why they do what they do and why they seek certain paths that they seek.
Yeah. Again, it's not a simple like, it's like, this is a good guy, he's doing great things.
Yeah.
But like it turns out to be very valuable to humans in general that this guy has had these experiences, and he's a very much often left field in terms of how he thinks and what he is willing to do.
Right.
And that sometimes that does benefit the group to have a different perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You can kind of look at that character and say, like, yeah, we do need to have empathy towards everyone and not just lock them up and forget about them. Like, they can teach us things still. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're starting to sound like an alien, actually.
Yeah, well, they had some points. I really like the last, act of this film. She tells him about the antidote for his mother, the antifreeze in her car, and he rushes out and does that.
Yeah.
But I think it's when that kills his mother and he returns that she, really confesses. She gives him the whole spiel of how humans are these, horrible apes, and we came to do these experiments and observe them and see if they could be redeemed. Like, at that point, you're thinking, okay, I guess she's really an alien. But still, when they go to her job, this is where they're going to, teleport to the ship or whatever.
Oh, right.
And it's with a calculator she has to put, a 58-digit code into. I'm still wondering in the back of my head, has she, concocted all of this to trick him?
Yeah.
Because, you're wondering why would she stay there, wait for him to come back, and then give him this whole spiel after she had freed herself. But at that point he had he had like taken out her knee in a really gruesome part. So she can't get far, I guess. Like he was gonna be able to catch her, so she had to come up with a plan. That's the human thought. The idea that she could still be human. I don't know. Yeah, it's clever. Like it still keeps you guessing right up to the end.
Yeah, it's true. That part is done well. Yeah, you just can't be sure what he's going to pull on you, whether or not she's an alien or not. And of course, typical of Lanthimos, he's going to show you an alien life that is super cool and interesting and different than has been seen before. I love that part of it. For sure. Had he must have worked with the same art crew that was on Poor Things, because it had that same vibrancy and artistic design and stuff. But so fun to see his vision of that. And yeah, that's what we come to Lanthimos for, is that kind of thing.
I couldn't pull you out. I couldn't make you oppose this film more.
Were you trying to?
Gotta disagree with me here. No. I mean, you made your reservations clear, but it's still pretty good. It's still tough to.
No, it's not going to be a Lanthimos film that we'll disagree on. It's going to be something else. We'll have to just wait and see what it's going to end up being. You have to get around to watching Megalopolis at some point. Maybe that'll be the masterpiece for you and the anti-masterpiece for everybody else. But I don't know. One of these movies coming up this year, maybe. We've got 2 Safdie Brothers films. The one just came out. Didn't do so well, apparently, right? The wrestling
smashing movie. Yeah.
But then the other one is supposed to be really good, with Chalamet as a ping pong player. We'll find out, right? How many things can he do? Here's Willy Wonka as Bob Dylan as a ping pong player.
Oh boy. If he steals Jesse Plemons' Oscar, which I don't think Jesse Plemons isn't going to win an Oscar from this film, even though he absolutely deserves it, but I don't know. I'll feel a little peeved regardless.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he is in this movie.
Marty Supreme.
By the way, I am going to be going to see Sentimental Value next weekend. So that's another possibility to talk about too.
Yeah. We certainly could. We're spoiled for choice, really, at this time of year.
Yeah, that's true. They need to shift that around a little bit, spread it out.
They really do.
That'll never happen.
But you can probably come back next week, and we'll be talking about The Conformist from 1970 by Bernardo Bertolucci.
Yes.
That's the plan.
Yeah. That's the plan. We're going to try to stick to the plan.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. So stay tuned, and thanks for tuning in for this. If you made it this far, don't forget to go to unauthorizedpod.com for letterbox links and other info and things like that. Until next time,
peace.